your child is struggling with focus, behavior, learning, or development, you've probably tried so many different things already. Different therapies, specialists, strategies, and maybe something that has helped, but you're still stuck. Nobody's been able to tell you why. Well, not really. Let me show you something that might finally help this all make sense. I call it the triangle of simplicity. 3 things that scientists and researchers all agree on about how kids' brains develop. When you understand these 3 things, you'll finally understand why your child is struggling and what actually needs to happen for them to get better. Point 1, the brain is not fully developed at birth. When your child is born, there's activity in all areas of the brain, but it's not very connected. It's not very efficient. But over time, from birth through their mid-20s, the brain has to move through a very specific trajectory of development, from the bottom to the top. I mean, the brainstem develops first, then the midbrain, then the cortex, from the back to the front. The visual areas develop before those motor areas, which develop before that prefrontal cortex, and it ends with that frontal lobe. That part handles focus, impulse control, emotional regulation. This part doesn't fully mature into the mid-20s, which is why kids can't regulate themselves the way that adults can. I think of it like a bud of a flower opened up to full bloom. The brain has to open up layer by layer in a very specific sequence. Now, here's what's really important. The way the brain is fed information from the body and the environment determines how efficiently it develops. So when a baby crawls, they're feeding their brain critical sensory and motor information. The coordinated movement activities cross hemispheric communication. The visual tracking develops spatial awareness. The brain has to open up layer by layer in a very specific sequence. If they skip crawling, their brain doesn't get that information, and it has to compensate. So that's point 1. The brain develops in a very specific order, and the way it's fed information determines how efficiently it develops. If the information is clear, the brain develops smoothly. If the information is distorted, the brain compensates, and those compensations shows up as struggle. Point 2, stress impacts brain development. Physical, chemical, and emotional stress has been shown in research to impact the way the brain develops. It impacts the architecture of that developing brain. But it's not just that we experience stress, the brain magically changes. It's the physical changes inside the brain and body as a result of those stresses. Those changes are what impact development. Every child has a different stress threshold. Think of it like a bucket. Every stressor fills that bucket a little bit. Some kids have bigger buckets, some have smaller buckets. Some have buckets that are already partially full from birth trauma or pregnancy complication. When the bucket gets too full, when a child hits their tipping point, that's when we start to see physical changes happen inside the body. 2 big impacts of stress are subluxation and gut breakdown. Subluxation is like a fuse blowing. Too much stress and the nervous system develops stuck spots in the spine where the bones aren't moving properly and the nervous system is interfered with. This matters because subluxation distorts the information the brain receives from the body. The brain depends on clear signal. When there's a subluxation, those signals are fuzzy, distorted, and altered information can alter growth. If the brain is receiving distorted information, it develops based on that distorted information. It has to compensate. The other impact is gut breakdown. Stress damages the gut lining and alters the gut microbiome. And the gut is the second brain. It produces the same neurotransmitters that the brain produces. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA. The gut and brain are in constant communication. When stress damages gut health, it directly impacts brain development. So that's point 2. Stress creates physical changes in the body. Changes like subluxations that distort brain signals. Changes like gut breakdown that affects neurotransmitter production. Those changes impact how the brain develops. Point 3. We need to address the results of stress. We live in a stressful world. More screen time, more processed food, more pressure, less downtime. We should reduce stressors whenever we can, like better nutrition, less sleep, more movement. But here's the problem. Even if we reduce future stress, we still need to address the results of the stress that's already happened, because those changes don't just go away on their own. If your child has subluxations from birth trauma or falls, those subluxations are still distorting the information their brain is receiving. Even if you reduce future stress, if your child has gut damage from antibiotics or poor diet, that damage is still affecting brain function, even if you improve the diet going forward. Think of the nervous system like a garden hose. Information needs to flow clearly from the body to the brain and back. But stress has created kinks in those hoses, like subluxations, stuck spots where information gets distorted. You can use the cleanest water all you want, but if the hose has kinks, the water isn't flowing properly. You have to unkink that hose. You have to restore a clear flow. That's what chiropractic care does. We find those subluxations, we assess how those are affecting the brain's ability to receive and send information, and we address them. We restore proper movement, we remove the interference so the brain can have clear information, process it efficiently, and send clear signals back out. Input, processing, output. When we restore healthy input, processing, output, the brain can move through its development the way it was designed to. When we see kids with behavioral challenges, learning difficulties, focus issues, that's a window into a brain that's compensating, adapting. But your child isn't broken. Their brain is doing what brains do. It's trying to function despite distorted information. Do we treat autism or ADHD? No, those are labels. We address the results of stress that impact the developing brain. We restore clear communication between the body and the brain so the brain can develop without the added burden of distorted information making everything harder. That's point 3. Address the results of stress so we can maintain healthy input, processing output, and healthy brain development. Let me bring this all together. Point 1, the brain develops in a very specific order, layer by layer, and the way it's fed information determines how efficiently it develops. Clear information supports healthy development. Distorted information creates compensation. Point 2, stress creates physical changes in the body. Subluxations that distort brain signals. Gut breakdown that affects neurotransmitter production. Those changes impact brain development. And point 3, we need to adjust the results of stress. Not just reduce stressors, but remove the subluxations and restore clear communication between the brain and the body. That's the triangle of simplicity. And this is why so many kids who aren't getting better with other therapies start thriving when we address their nervous system. Speech therapy, OT, behavioral therapy, all important. But if the underlying nervous system interference is still there, those therapies are going to be working uphill. When we remove the interference and restore clear input to the brain can develop the way it's meant to. Those therapies become more effective. Skills develop faster. Learning becomes easier. So if your child is struggling and nothing else has worked, it might be because nobody's addressing point 3 yet. Nobody's looked at the physical changes stress created in their nervous system. Book a complimentary consultation at truecenter.com or call us at 443-333-9876. We'll assess your child's nervous system. We'll show you where the interference is and we'll create a plan to address it. Not treat a diagnosis, but to restore clear communication between your child's body and brain. Because every child deserves a nervous system that works the way it was designed to. Every child deserves to develop without distorted information making everything harder. Drop a comment if this helped something click. And share this with another parent who needs to understand the why behind their child's struggles.